people. I would love to, if you can all put on your camera so I can see you for a minute before I start the presentation, and we can all say hi. We're live. Let's all say hi. Hi.
Hello.
Hello, hello. So now I will ask you all to turn off your cameras and your mics, and I'll start the presentation for a little while, and of course give you the stage. So everybody here has contributed to this beautiful chaos, as someone said it, the organized chaos of what we tried to achieve in the last couple of days. It's been fruitful. I think like finally right now I'm getting slowly the hang of it, and now it has to end. Oh, apologies. It seems that there was a little bit too much of a wind situation going on here. So welcome to the finale. This is the end of this 3 days. It's been a journey so far, but it's just the beginning of, at least for me, of some collaborations, of meeting some new people that I would love to keep in touch and continue working together, and discovering new tools and discovering new ways of thinking. So for the ones who don't know me, that's not possible by now because I've been in all of these beginning and ending sessions. I'm Elena, and I've founded Data Natives, which is a community of data scientists, very crucial as part of the journey here when we're talking about data privacy, of course, and contributing as a co-director to the Both End, which is a non-profit organization that, a recent one, a new one, that aims to support in all kinds of questions, and starting with the first one, how can we have both privacy and healthcare? But I do think this is the beginning of breaking apart or deconstructing this dichotomy of concepts of either or. So overview of what's going to happen now. We had a short delay, mainly because we were trying to get everybody in the rooms after the final Lighthouse session. So every Lighthouse will have 5 minutes to present what they'd worked on now. Then we're going to have a keynote by Katherine Townsend from data.org, who's going to be helping us coming to the end of this 3 days with her ideas and her important work on bringing forward using data science for social good. And afterwards, we'll do the closing remarks together with Matthew, and we will have some live music. So stick around and get to know each other. So, Lighthouse presentations now. I need to share my screen again, but now showing you something different. So you've heard it a lot of times. We talked about it a lot of times. I need to share my screenshot, my desktop. We talked about it a lot of times. Basically, from the beginning at least. We've created this forum, and we're using this forum here as a starting point to continue collaborating with each other afterwards. So every Lighthouse created an idea here, an idea section of how they want to continue working with each other. So for that, I would like to first invite David and whoever else is joining him to present us what the Lighthouse of Healthcare came out with. Can you see my screen, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And you can see the Lighthouse, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure if I can make it bigger. I don't know. Anyway, but anyway.
I have difficulty reading because I'm on my mobile phone, so I'm going to read from the notes.
Okay.
It should be the same.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So we came away with, we have 5 action points and initiatives. 4 of them are relating to mental health, and the last one will be presented, and I just totally fulfilled by Phil. So the first 4 is about mental health awareness and education, starting from the bottom of the chain, early childhood model after the successful implementation in a country such as Argentina, where seeing a psychologist is absolutely completely normal. Mental health hygiene, how do we help people help themselves become more aware and better understand the impact their digital habits have on their mental health, especially as a means of a prevention. How do we make universal healthcare a global reality? Study the healthcare models and systems existing that work, how and why, and then take the points that work and implement them globally. And the last one in mental health is about how do we address mental health stigma? What can we do to reduce the stigma about mental health and make it part of the daily conversation or the question, answer to the question, how are you? And promote sharing how we are feeling in every situation, especially in our professional lives. Now I'll hand it over to Phil to discuss the item that we, are you here, Phil?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Cool.
Cool.
Yep,
yeah,
it's all yours.
Picking up on what David was saying, I think it would be very helpful to our community to map out some of this stuff. Everyone's sort of starting from very different places. And what we discussed was, obviously we need to start with the patient or the user, because people aren't always going to be patients. They may not yet be unwell, but they may still need to plug into things that will help them. So to go for what we've called the high-hanging fruit, maybe those people who are more difficult to reach, the disenfranchised, the stigmatized, as David has said, to be able to understand current digital health practices. There are many, many things that are going on at the moment in and within established healthcare systems, whether they're in the developed world or in the developing world. And we need to be, I think, more aware of just the range of what initiatives going on. I've heard many people talking about things I have never come across in these last couple of days. The third part is to map out, and much of this work has been done already, mapping out the frameworks within which we're all operating. That's data protection and privacy laws, which we can't depend on there necessarily even being a legal framework in some countries, but we can use things like the GDPR as a default. And the actual regulatory landscapes that you are finding yourselves in within each country. In the UK, where I am based, we've mapped out the regulatory landscape for access to health data, and exposing those sorts of maps, I think, will help people innovate, navigate through the sort of the system, which can be very complicated. And the final part is that we all need to be talking a common language. And in healthcare, that comes down to something really quite fundamental, what are called the data dictionaries. And there are various ones which are mentioned in here, SNOMED, ICD-10. These are ways in which medical events are recorded in medical IT systems. And so it would help when people are thinking about building a new initiative or something to actually be aware of the language that they're going to be sort of speaking, if you like, across systems. So I think with a joint effort, everyone adding in what they know from their particular context, we could come up with a very, very helpful map that may actually make the resources that we put into this spent more effectively. So if you'd like to join any of these projects, if you join the community platform at the both end, look under my profile, all 5 projects are there. Please, you're more than welcome to join, even as a casual observer or an active participant. Everyone's welcome.
Thank you very much, David. And of course, you also have your own very important project that I think is related, of course, with this mission as well. So it would be great if you'd like to also continue working on it. Did I do something? Can you still see my screen? Yeah? Okay. All right. I'm always kind of confused when the people change from my vicinity. All right. Anyway, thank you so much, both Phil and David. Great work that you've done over this last few days, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the continuation of it. So next up,
thank you.
I see here is Ansela. Ansela, can you see my screen? Can you see the points? Let me know if you want me to scroll down on something.
Okay. Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna mute myself and hide. So go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. So for the last 3 days, my group and I, we've been discussing a lot about data privacy, GDPR, privacy policy, and we've come up with some actionable plans. I think the feeling we all have is we're quite satisfied with the GDPR, but then it has to be enforced. It's not being enforced enough. And so what our first point is reviewing organizational chart, reviewing board structure, and data protection officers should have a lot of independence, a lot of authority to influence decisions that are being made, such that whatever data is being collected, however businesses are operating, they do well to be data compliant, just not, and they will not necessarily just go after the economic gains. So it's important that we give data privacy, data protection officers a lot of authority in companies. On the external level, it's important that we encourage more engagement with non-profits. For example, I've added a link of an organization, My Privacy is Not Your Business. I think there are 2 levels in the future about how things will be. If you're looking at the future, the levels are the level of activism and also the level of collaboration. And so it's important that we engage with such communities as they fight for better protection, data privacy protection. The third point also has to do with funding for research. A lot of people go more with decentralized modules. I also attached a link of a community called My Data, and the products they're coming up with is such that you'll be able to have access to your data, just as you're able to have your online banking, check your transaction, check what money went out, what money came in. You should be able to do the same. And so to be great that the government and people who provide funding, they should really look at providing funding for such courses. The final point has to do with confidence building, and there's an interesting one, because we started by using the word trust, and then it came up that people do not want to trust in the law. They want to have confidence in the law. And how do they do that? They do that through education, and education should be simplified. It shouldn't be in about 200 pages of notes. Why don't we simplify it? Why don't we turn it into, for example, a TikTok video, which is very educative at the same time. Again, when it comes to data literacy, one of the speakers talked about going to public schools to provide education to young students, because they're also on their phones. So starting the education right from primary school on a periodic level. And I thought it would be great for companies as part of corporate social responsibility to go into schools and educate young people about social media, about internet, and what to put out there and what not to put out there. So I think this is I think this is a summary of the actionable points we put together. So please do well to contribute if you have any more ideas beyond today.
Great points, Ansela. Great points.
Sorry, Elena. Vladimir is part of my group, and I think he wants to make a statement.
Yeah, just a couple of words. We also discussed public libraries as the possible channel for transmitting this, or for building these points of access for general public to data literacy and for inclusivity, because mostly people who are gathered here are mostly experts, and it's very hard for experts to be also educators or enablers of data literacy education. So maybe we should work more with public authorities like cities and governments for so-called people-public-private partnerships. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vladimir, for your point and for your contribution so far. And it's really important, as well as also Ansela already mentioned, to support nonprofit organizations like My Data or data.org. think is very important because you guys are doing the work of this, and now also both end is joining you. So hopefully we'll have a beautiful alliance altogether. Next one, Layered. I believe that's you.
Yes, jumping in. Thank you, Elena. And some really fantastic ideas so far. I'm looking forward to seeing these develop. I have to admit that I was going through my notes, very extensive notes that have been taken over the past couple of years. It seems like years over the last couple of days. And there were so many incredible insights and contributions that it was almost overwhelming trying to pick one area to pick up on. And as I was getting towards, I think it was at the end of yesterday's session in our tech group, one of the most technical savvy people in the group kind of threw up his hands at one point, and I'm just going to quote him directly here. And he said, "We are so desperate to believe this contact tracing technology will work, but do we have any firsthand proof that it will?" And we've heard so many tall claims about almost how invulnerable or how fantastic Bluetooth tracing is going to, or contact tracing rather via Bluetooth. And yet, do we actually know that it's going to work as advertised? And the reason that I really fell on this one, both because this quote happened yesterday, but also today, Germany released its own application. Apparently it's being, from all reports, being widely downloaded. There's a link in the second in the paragraph there to the news article that goes to the claim. But the claim is almost so grandiose. It's I think it's, the minister said that there are other applications out there, but this is the best. It's like the Bluetooth BMW. So, you know, we're going to win it with this one. This is going to be fantastic. So, and I was also struck by another news article from, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, Bruce Schneier, who's a very highly regarded cryptography and security expert, almost dismissed outright how well Bluetooth was going to work. He was claiming, as closely as I can recall, that it was almost useless. Now, this is a fairly extreme opinion. I've heard other technical experts saying, well, we're not really sure how well it's going to work. So what we'd like to do with this project is just see, you know, if the proof is in the pudding. You know, will these things work as advertised? What data is being collected? How well is it doing so? So we'll follow this, the development and distribution and efficacy of this application specifically in Germany. And we're also going to look at other widely available applications basically doing the same thing and compare and contrast them and see exactly, you know, are they useful or are they part of a solution? One thing that we've seen here in Berlin, and especially in the developing world, is a more analog approach to what is called disease surveillance. So it's essentially the same thing that we're seeing. For instance, if you go to a restaurant or bar or some other public place here in Berlin, you'll often be given just a small piece of paper. You write down your name and phone number. So if we know that if maybe somebody was infected in this area and you were there at the same time, then somebody could get in touch with you. Now, it's an interesting discussion and debate right now, because even if these applications do work very well, will people use them? The latest statistics we've seen in Germany, and I'm guessing they're reasonably similar elsewhere, is that 39% of the population simply will not download these applications. They don't trust the government, they don't trust the organizations distributing, they're worried about their privacy, so they're simply not going to use them. And this begs the question, then how are we going to solve this problem? Because According to some studies, it takes 60% of a population to be using these applications for them to be particularly useful. So we'll see where this goes. We'll see if these applications work as advertised. We'll start in Germany. Hopefully some people from this immediate group will join, and then as more people come onto the platform, we'd love to get them involved with this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laird. Great work so far, and looking forward to see the results next. And last but certainly not least, I would like to invite the people in the lighthouse that I was part of, William, Dimitri, and Michelle, to help me in talking through what we've decided and what came out of our as a result of our work so far all these days. Dimitri, are you here? Yes. Dimitri,
Yeah,
you start. You tell us the beginning of this.
Yeah, well, for me, the beginning was when I jumped straight into the grassroots action I'm involved, and it's actually a chain, and it's been for 2 years. But right now we have a big project that I uploaded on this platform, so everybody is welcome to see. Now to the challenges that we've been facing. Of course, we are facing massive competition from well-funded multinationals. In our case, these are academic publishers, and their interests are not exactly the same. We are disorganized, even though people are passionate, enthusiastic. Once you ask them to get things done, they can disappear. Generally, it's very hard to have people to commit, even if they are enthusiastic. People are busy, they have their job. Again, what we think is needed is some kind of paid staff who would do the manual work, who would remind the people and drive it, and that can make a big difference. Solutions, so other than paid staff, on a higher level, to connect with others, because these problems are not...
Oh yes, Dimitri, did you finish the challenges so William can just...
I wanted to pick, okay, let's go back to challenges to finish them. So
yes, please. We are, everybody.
Okay, one important challenge, especially if your topic is complex, to have enough attention, people to understand it. Some people just don't give you attention, they question things right away. Then major funding, of course, is major challenge because there is no good structure for that type of initiatives. And challenge to get response from organizations. They just generally don't respond, and it takes a lot of time.
Thank you so much, Dimitri. Thank you very much. And William?
Yeah, thank you, Dimitri. What I see actually in the solution phase is very much the beginning of anything is to really understand our frustrations and that they are valid in our work. And beginning from that, we can actually start to see, okay, what can we do practically together? And one of the practical things that we can do as a community of activists, although we are dispersed throughout the world and we have different targets, you know, the problem of coming in as a contender and have to deal with organizations that are much more conservative and want to defend their turf, is how can we actually share our knowledge on doing that, and how can we actually deploy our knowledge, our practical resources, also tools of how to get funding, very specific challenges in getting funding. How can we actually deal with the bureaucracy in specific regions of where you are operating, and this to be done in an environment of trusted people. Also in this kind of network, or in this network on this platform, is, if I'd like to say, the very beginning of much more, and to actually also leverage the relationships that we have built through the last 3 days from here on.
Thanks, William. Michelle.
Hi, can you see me? Yeah. I would continue with one aspect we saw in order to get root movements to become mainstream. And one big aspect was strong leadership. We need some role models, but serving the cause. So the idea is not to have somebody personifying the group, the organization, so that the organization is depending then on that one person, but a real, let's say, switch or shift of the values and the mission and so on the organization with several role models. And those role models should have some it should be quite inclusive. That means on the one hand, ready to learn. Maybe they can learn from startups. We discussed about the fact that maybe we can work also with sprints, for example, just for people participating to be able to see results also in a short time if they are not available for a longer time, and be motivated anyway, or learn from mainstream organizations and their structures regarding, I don't know, marketing, communications, and so on, and how they the identification of the people to organize to an organization can be enhanced. One other point was the to be accessible to a greater amount of persons. So really being inclusive. Some organizations struggle due to the fact that they are very bound with anger. So, and that's not always the right motivation to reach more people and to take care also of their needs as human beings, working and having maybe not that much time sometimes. And it's really about leveraging the people and their capacities more than giving bad conscience sometimes. So the idea is to have a big, broad movement. And we've been thinking about flexibility and rigidity. And I think, or we think, this is the balance which has to be found by strong leadership.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So it was great to work together with the three of you and more people that are not here present, but definitely you've contributed so far greatly to think things through and develop a how to guide for grassroots movements, and I think it's really important. We need to share best practices and information with each other, and that's certainly the next step that we will do, working together collaboratively in this platform. So I already got a verbal commitment in the previous meeting that William and Michelle and Dimitri, I think, will also continue working with us to develop all of these ideas. And now I will stop sharing this, my screen, and I would give the torch to Katherine, who is our closing keynote for today. So Katherine, the floor is yours. You may share the screen. I'll just jump right in. We are 15 minutes delayed, well, 13 minutes delayed. So I'm just gonna jump right in. And again, thank you everybody. It's been great so far. And I will jump at the end and present the next steps together with Matthew. So enjoy.
Wonderful. So I don't have a screen to share. I'll just be talking with you all, which I'm looking forward to. So thank you. Thank you, Elena, and your incredible team for bringing together this conference. I've loved the conversations that I've been able to join. I admit that I am 6 hours behind you all, so I've missed the sessions that run at about 3:30 in the morning. But I've been so pleased to see some familiar faces, old friends, people whose work I've followed for years, and a lot of really incredible leaders who I've yet to meet, have heard speak at this event. So I'm grateful to be able to provide a final presentation, segueing into your closing remarks by our host. So what was this conference about? Transparency by design, both and. I love this notion of both and. I feel like I'm living in both and now. I'm trying to work on a startup that is emerging. It's a merging of two different philosophies, private sector and philanthropic. It's in a sector that merges expertise and analysis, computer science and statistics. My name is Katherine Townsend. I'm currently serving as COO of Data.org. I'd like to share with you the work that we're doing at Data.org, but I thought I'd first start by sharing background on my own work in transparency for the US government. So I began working for the US State Department in 2008 at a time when the internet was mostly seen as another asset of the US. And the role of government was to protect the internet as yet another one of its foreign investments. At that time, and I know it may seem very normal now, but as we've seen too easily, our norms and our progress can get rolled back and eliminated. At that time, we weren't allowed to have blogs or social media profiles that did not explicitly represent us as members of the US government. Anything that you spoke about online had to be in the context of your representing your role as a government employee. And if you had anything to say about US policies or practices, it had to be cleared through, about 15 channels. This was a very Cold War mentality of government as a monolith, a black box that could not be entered in or known about. And as internet and online networks continued to enter into our daily lives, it led to some pretty specific and I would say strange regulations. We had a manual for online conduct that detailed requirements, including for a platform called Second Life, included stipulations such as dress code and the species of your avatar, business suit, and human. So we worked to reshape, to integrate social media and dialogue into public service, to break down the barriers of what was an official statement by the US government to represent instead a government of the people. In working for the US for 8 years, I realized that reform to government doesn't solely need to come from the outside, that we don't always need new blood or fresh ideas. People who've worked for government for 30 years, they know what needs to change. For most civil servants, that's the reason they joined, to help their country improve and do good work. And I should say that I've worked with governments around the world, Ghana, South Africa, UAE, Colombia, Tanzania, wherever you go, government is filled with civil servants who joined because they want to help and because they want to improve their country. So our role for all of us, for those of us at this conference, as reformers, as transparency advocates, is to make this work just a little bit easier for the civil servants, or in some cases, possible at all. So let's see, civil servants want to improve their organizations. They wish to be creative and solve problems and to use their vast resources to make that change. But they are too often ground down by bureaucracy and by systems entrenched in stagnation. Enter transparency. Transparency was the tool we sought to use to open these systems, to lay bare what worked well in government and what needed to be improved. We found that many advocates have worked on this for decades, for centuries, that a lack of transparency, not just making information available, but usable and accessible, as has been shared earlier in this conference by another panelist, that making that information usable and accessible was key to solving so many problems. So if a 1,600-page legal decision is available, but only in paper format and only if you physically visit the State House and read it while inside, oh, by the way, no copies, no photos, is it actually open? No, it's not. The information must be usable, must be accessible, and navigation should be intuitive enough to be able to translate beyond a very wonky group, like those gathered here, who genuinely enjoy spreadsheets and diving in on data. I was so fortunate at the time, and looking at the situation now, I could not imagine how fortunate, to work for a flawed president, absolutely, but to work for a president and with people who valued transparency and understood that it was a key to systematic change. The first executive order signed on day one in office was the commitment to transparency. And how did that vision pan out? You'll remember healthcare.gov, President Obama's signature initiative that launched, and then the website almost immediately crashed. That wasn't for lack of leadership. It wasn't for lack of prioritization. This was the signature initiative. It was the legacy of the presidency. And it also wasn't for lack of technologists wanting to work on that project, though government absolutely needs more technologists, and I'll get to that later. It was because the systems in place for making decisions, for organizing and integrating information, and for procuring technology were so entrenched, it was impossible to shed light on how dysfunctional the existing system was until ultimately, embarrassingly, it was laid bare. So we worked to open up. With an executive order requiring agencies implement open data and a toolkit and a policy for implementation that was developed publicly on GitHub. We used GitHub like any track change document to solicit input and advice and update it directly. This became a toolkit still available that anyone could use, and many did, for their own policies and implementation in the US, around the world. We did this with a lot of people from the private sector who then came to government. And if any of you on here have followed the careers of, say, Matt Cutts or DJ Patil or Megan Smith, who were all previously private sector employed, they'll all tell you that government just has more interesting problems to solve. Stopping an opioid epidemic is a more interesting problem than selling shoes. Using satellites to find water points and build out plans for clean water for millions of people is a more interesting problem than click-through rates. It always will be. Government, service, social impact. That's worth throwing your life at if you can be effective in doing so. So to wrap up this look back portion, there were so many things, so many incredible people, and so much that I learned and grew from those 8 years working for the Obama administration. And I think I can summarize them in about 4 sentences. First one is engage early and often. It's not enough to know your network. You have to constantly be talking with them so that you're not calling on the community or calling on the government when a crisis hits. Heard from a lot of community leaders and community organizers, civic engagement people in this conference. They know that work really well. Both Anne notes it well. It's consistent engagement that's going to lead to reform. Second, change happens when dedicated people outside the system partner and support the people inside wanting to change. And it's this partnership and this collaboration that leads to the needed work. Third, show your work. People are far more likely to forgive your mistakes if they know why you made them. What were you thinking? And they can see either why they would also have made the same choices or offer you an improvement. Be transparent about your work and always be shipping. Fourth, leadership matters. Absolutely. But only as much as changing day-to-day operations. We need top cover, but writing a policy or passing a law is not change. It's the work of dedicated people updating their daily work and habits that leads to change. That's why, for example, at USAID, where I worked with an incredible team to implement an open data policy, they are still sharing data sets today, even in this new administration. Now, I should say and realize that some of you are working in the international development space, and I am sure you wish that there was a lot more data that was available or that the data was more navigable. You're right, absolutely. But it's worth noting that the supply is consistent and persistent. And again, if you want to improve it, there are a team of people inside that organization that would love your help. Okay, and 5, I told a lie. I learned 5 things in 8 years. The 5th is that we need more technologists in government. There is too much that depends on educated decision-making that cannot be outsourced. And what ends up happening is that governments need advice. They need solutions, they need answers, and so they turn to those who have those answers or who claim to have those answers to solve these problems. And that's how you get corporations that may have some great people leading them, but they're not accountable to the public as government is. These are the organizations designing tools and algorithms, and in many cases, supplying the data the government uses to write policy. Or often, they just pen the policy themselves. And they are making decisions that shape all of our lives. So what to do? Well, for me, after taking some time to process the fact that my country had just elected, as Dave Chappelle says, the first internet troll as president, not by popular vote, we'll say, I joined up with a group of people. So it took some time. And then I found this great group of people who are trying to rethink and reshape the role of technologists in our society, and specifically, the role of data scientists. Now, the term data science and data scientist is evolving, but essentially, it means someone who has three kinds of disciplines: trained in computer science, coding, in mathematics, statistics and analytics, and in a subject matter, environment, gender equity, land rights, healthcare. And it's the stitching together of these different expertise that data scientists have the potential to provide insights that, granted, may not be as deep as someone solely grounded in a specific subject matter expertise, but has far broader reaching implications than a single person immersed in only one of these three disciplines. So, where are data scientists now? Well, overwhelmingly, they're at some of the biggest brand name companies you know quite well: Amazon, Facebook, Google. The identity of a data scientist has become aligned with someone who gets paid a lot of money to make an organization even more money. This is not a bad goal, and I don't have an issue with that, but I want to diversify. I'd like there to be more opportunities and more interesting problems to solve out there. So we know that this isn't the full story. We work with many data scientists in our lives, many who are participating in this conference. They do work on the world's most interesting problems: water points or food deserts or COVID relief. And for that latter category, too many have been pushed out or fired for telling the truth about data. So how do we change the narrative? How do we change the perception of a data scientist? How do we build the field of data science for social impact, which is data.org's goal, to flood the marketplace, including government, with dedicated technologists seeking and trained to do good? So at my new organization, we think of making this change in three ways. First is storytelling. We need to tell stories of what good data science looks like and how to use that data science for social impact. We need to flood the market with examples of data scientists solving the world's most complex, interesting, and valuable problems. We do this by supporting a few organizations and by profiling others. 2, capacity building. There are many nonprofits that want to hire data scientists, that want to be data-driven and integrate this work. But too often, they may not need a data scientist. They could need a data engineer. They could simply need somebody who knows how to run a pivot table, or they need to write down their data so that it can be documented and organized. We want to help organizations increase their capacity for data science and to be data-driven in their decision-making. We also want to help the private sector. That too often, the work on social impact is pushed as part of a corporate social responsibility project, and they give just a small percentage of their wealth to social good work that the rest of us then scramble to absorb. We want the private sector to integrate data for good in all of their work and make this part of their bottom line. And finally, number 3, public goods. So we think of what is the shared information, the tools, the research needed to build a field of data science for social impact. Too much of the laws that govern us are about supporting wealth or about protecting against the harms of government and private sector. And again, very important. But we need to invest in laws, frameworks, and shared data resources where we put social impact at the forefront of our goals and start with what needs to be in place so that we could make the most progress. And so we have to ask, What does it mean to be transparent by design? How can we design systems that are transparent? Transparency is an active word. It means showing your progress. Open source software isn't about presenting a polished product to the world. It's about working collaboratively and building on the ideas of each other. We often hear, or maybe it's an American expression, you don't want to see how the sausage is made. And to that I say, yes, I absolutely do want to see how the sausage is made. I want to know how you think. I want to know how you arrived at your conclusions and whether bringing in another way of thinking will shape the outcomes, will challenge assumptions, and will improve the system. So if I have a few minutes, what's giving me hope in this space? Fortunately, there's a lot. And one of the investments I'm really excited about that is years in the making, so this is a longer burn, is roughly titled, may change it, called the Universal Labeling Project. So the idea here is that data science students are often trained on the same available data set and asked to solve the same kind of problems. And what is that data set? As you may know it, they're marketing data, it's ad data, and how to more efficiently get the consumer connected. The problem with this, of course, is that as a student, if you're in training and you learn that and associate that data science is part of corporate data, then your imagination is to work in the corporate field. And there's good reason to use this data. Facebook has 400 quadrillion lines of code, and that's a lot. That's a lot of data to work with. Try to extract national statistics data from governments. It's not even close to as detailed. Try to get a nonprofit to share their data, you're going to have to work with them to spend hours or months cleaning it up or putting processes in place to just write it down. The Universal Labeling Project seeks to change this by funding the sourcing and cleaning of diverse and detailed data sets that can be used by any university or organization for their own training models. So as part of data.org, I've been speaking with several universities about their own data science programs. Here's another element of hope, or about their public policy programs that are trying to infuse data science. It's really fascinating. Some are truly taking the approach of starting a department from scratch, reasoning that this would be more efficient than contending with breaking down entrenched academic silos. But one example that I really love is from Cooper Union, which is a creative technical school based in New York City. And this past year, they started their first course on data science for social impact. And the way they went about it is they paired a professor in mechanical engineering with a professor of architecture and brought together computer science students and students of design. They began by asking the students to analyze a data set, a very simple one, that they could access and that wasn't going to have too many privacy or security concerns. It was the text of the feedback survey that recent alumni use to provide input about their college. They were trying to run sentiment analysis to determine what worked well and what could be improved. They were seeking to be data-driven in their decision-making. The technical professor shared that her students always ran analysis on the full text, but that the moment they brought the problem to the design students, students asked, what are the common words and phrases that are present in most of the feedback? What is the default language that alumni are using? Words like formative or community or growth. These are kind of a crutch. They removed these words from the text, stripped them of these safe words and phrases, and the sentiment read very differently. And Cooper Union's leadership were able to give more specific feedback than they had before. Now, in the world of data science, where the right data set and analysis can curb a pandemic or prepare a city to respond to flooding or drought, this example may not seem to register so large. But I appreciate so much that the reason the data was useful was not because they had the greatest computational minds, but because they had diverse minds that were asking a lot of questions. And it's from these questions and this collaboration of various actors that they were able to learn something and gain insight that was truly meaningful. So, what's next? I'll ask you all to think of working collaboratively across diverse networks. Share your work, and please share your stories. I know that I want to flood the world with stories of data science for social impact. We've got some great ones. There's John Jay University, where volunteers from DataKind work with tutors and 10 years of data to find at-risk students and get the graduation rate match them to tutors, and get the graduation rate from 54% in 2 years to 72% in 1 year. Community Solutions, an organization that we work with, partners with veterans associations, with shelters, and tracking government relief programs to feed into a predictive model to warn of and plan for, in the US, an additional 250,000 homeless people that are going to need services solely because of COVID. The Citizens Police Data Project, which ran a sentiment analysis on 250,000 pages of reports on police officer conduct in the city of Chicago. And this has been used to fuel reform. Mobile Web Ghana, which used volunteers to map out waste dumping in the city of Accra, and then worked with that map, with municipal leaders, and with traffic data and the routes of the refuse routes to design a better system for sanitation. It's incredible. I love these stories, and I want more of them. I want to live in a world where these stories are everywhere, where the identity of a data scientist is someone who works on the world's most interesting and most pressing problems, where the pipeline of talent is kids knowing that math and art are integrated, where young professionals feel ready to work on a better world in any organization they enter into, and where leaders of institutions, organizations, governments have the policies, frameworks, and partnerships they need to be solving the world's toughest problems and designing the best path forward for everyone. So I'm so glad that so many of you are working on this too. And I'm looking forward to building this future together. And to that end, I should make 2 announcements so that we have an ongoing challenge at data.org. We've got a month left, and it's data science for recovery and growth in the wake of COVID. Leave no person, place, or organization behind. This is for $10,000 up to $10 million, and it can be from or for anyone in the world. So I hope you'll apply there or let us know your ideas. And we are also searching for an executive director. So if you know somebody, so if this is exciting to you, if what I've shared sounds like something you'd like to work on, we'd welcome your application. We're hoping for somebody who is a great data scientist who can help us build up our portfolio, build up our partnerships, build up our platform, and keep doing good in the world. So we'd love to have you on the team. And with that, I'd say thank you all for having me here, and look forward to doing good work and collaborating together.
Hi, I just realized my camera is off. Hi, Katherine. Thank you very much for your presentation and for sharing your learnings. Very important, very important learnings after working so closely and now trying to bridging the gap between the government and private sector. Any questions for Katherine? Very good, thanks. Brilliant, brilliant. Only great.
Only adulation, yeah.
Only congratulations, exactly, for your great work.
Okay.
Okay.
So Elena, I mean, how do you think the Both And community continues in the work that you've learned from COVID that goes beyond and can apply to other kinds of, if it's crisis that comes up, or if it's other kinds of, you know, kind of inflection points where you need to gather and sustain a community? Do you think of this as part of that ongoing? Are there lessons that you're learning as this is evolving?
That's a very good question. Well, I think right now what we're doing is we don't see this as a one-time thing. I would say it's a lesson, right? As you already shared the lessons learned, it's a lesson of what can happen in the world and how we can build resilience. So I see this as a way of, well, first of all, and I think that's one of the learnings that I gathered from this couple of days. First of all, we've been in a world that has been dominated by universalities and dichotomies, and I think that's the kind of ideology and bigger vision that Both And is trying to bring in of a community that it's no longer things in terms of either or. So it's not black or white, it's actually gray. So, and we're working in this gray area And I think and for sure what we are aiming to do is build resilient communities. So starting with respecting everybody's private space and privacy, at the same time looking for open and transparency and honesty. I think we're both in a very similar mission here, seeing it from different angles, and we're doing it in Europe. I would say from my side, are you planning to also expand outside of the US, or is your focus area only the US?
No, our focus is global. So I should mention that the challenge is open to anyone in the world, and the ED position is also open to anyone in the world, except for countries that are under sanctions, which is unfortunate. But we do a lot of work. I mean, we have these projects right now and upcoming in Southeast Asia, in Sub-Saharan Africa, looking to expand in Latin America and in Central Europe. So I think, you know, the platform of data.org, I think we have a real opportunity to have that as a place where people can go to connect with others, to realize the kind of world where they would want to build and they would want to support, where data is for good. I mean, it's sort of intrinsic in the name. We almost lost .org for a second to private equity, but now that that's back, I mean, it's really built in there. And so our offering is that this sort of next wave of what we can do with data.org is to drive it on data science for social impact and to sort of build this field in this next wave. But I really think that its long-term is a space for the concerns, the solutions, the airing out of people who have been working in this space for years and decades. Yeah.
And why is it important for you to have the org? Why is it important for you to create this bridge between private and public?
I mean, I tried to speak about it a bit in the remarks, is that that bridge is already there. You don't always see it. It's not always entirely transparent. But basically in technology, if you don't have technologists in government that really understand what the context is and what the solutions are, government goes to, and nonprofit organizations as well, go to the private sector anyway, most do, and just say, what tool are you using? It's very hard to sort of scope out and procure a better solution. And so it's necessary to have greater dialogue, greater partnerships, and just greater sort of data literacy, so that there isn't such a stark divide between public service and sort of private sector growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that as well. Somehow, like the decompartmentalization of institutions, but also of different sectors and industries. And I think this cross learning and cross-functional learning and multidisciplinarity is very important. One last question that I wanted to ask you, actually, regarding your work and how you work together with other organizations. Do you have an alliance with other organizations or other similar institutions like you?
So we haven't started any consortium yet, though that's a good idea. We are founded by the Rockefeller Foundation and MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth. So that's why I speak about, we live in this both and. We live in this kind of tension between different worlds. There's the philanthropic side, and then there's the private sector side. There's the sort of tech and data-driven side. And so and it's a similar tension that data scientists live in. You know, how are you in the subject matter expertise, but you're also in this technical expertise. So that's how we've founded the organization. And the name itself actually comes from the One campaign, and its work on debt, AIDS, and trade assistance in Africa. And so we have these sort of legacy partners and legacy organizations that are informing us. But I think the future work is to identify, you know, who are organizations or individuals, frankly, that have similar goals, that would want to be part of shaping this future together. I mean, and as we say, we're still seeking an ED. So we have this, we have this vision, we have these goals, we have these plans, and we have these funding for several years. But we really also have an opportunity to take what the idea of data.org can be and shape it for the rest of the world.
Big missions. Changing the world is a big ambition, but I like it. There's one question, if you don't mind, just to answer before we wrap up this session. Do you think that cooperatives have a role to play in the future of the data economy?
Cooperatives?
Mm-hmm. Cooperatives, yes.
Like data cooperative, maybe I don't have the language on that. Like different ways of
So yeah, as far as I understand it, cooperatives as in a infrastructure of an organization where there's not clear ownership and there's a lot of different, it's an open cooperative, everybody's a member of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting operating model. And I do think that that's an operating model that we need to be paying a lot more attention to, because I think that's how you have far more sustained growth. Doesn't matter what sort of sector or industry you're in. I think it's messier to set up and it takes a longer time, but I think it's stronger and is far more sustained. And I think, when we think of where the power lies in data ownership, you can take lessons from like coffee cooperatives. There's examples from Ethiopia of coffee cooperatives where in order to increase your marketing power, you would have these different farmers band together and say, okay, well, we'll set the price, because it's very easy to sort of go and pick off different smallholder farmer. But if you actually have people in this cooperative, in this coalition together, then you can sort of represent those bodies as a whole. And by having that cooperative model where everybody sort of rises and falls depending on how you're doing, it's much more egalitarian. I'm definitely interested in seeing how that evolves and what that looks like for data ownership, data sharing, different kinds of models in that way.
Thank you so much, Katherine, for joining us, and looking forward to more fruitful conversations and potential collaborations in the future together.
I love that.
I like how this almost ends. I just wanna introduce another person in our conversation just for the end of it. Matthew, hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Great to be joining.
Great to have you. Would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Matthew Deucazen, originally from the States. I'm based here in Berlin now for the last couple of years. And I've been working as a chief commercial officer for Poly, establishing a privacy-first, decentralized infrastructure for the new data economy. Previous to that, I worked at Techstars and spent a lot of time on ecosystem development and supporting entrepreneurs around the world.
And well, together we're closing this session now. We are closing this three-day journey that it was, with a lot of fruitful conversations, and with two specific points. Perhaps you want to start with the first one, Matthew.
Yeah, so we want to do something meaningful with all the momentum and participation here, and really with a bigger, broader vision of, how can we come together to build a stronger, more resilient, more entrepreneurial, more innovative Europe. And so we really want to take, all the ideas and momentum and participation from the summit and actually turn that into some concrete things where people are actually getting their hands dirty more and working together on the community platform on specific projects that support this broader vision. Exactly.
And as you all seen so far, we have created, our great moderators have done an excellent job in summarize the key points and action items for the next couple of weeks. And the next thing for us would be to follow up with you. I know from my Lighthouse that I already have commitment of 3-4 people that I'm going to bring on board to continue this. And I would love to see you all continue working together. And of course, because we're working together, we also need to give each other feedback and to improve with each other. So what we really, really want you is to fill out the poll and the feedback form to determine how we can engage with each other better in the future. There's a lot of different ways that we can organize activities together, online and offline. Matthew?
Yes. So,
Sorry.
then, go ahead. Sorry.
Nothing.
Okay, I'll take it from here. Yeah. So, you know, as we're doing our plans for these next months, we're thinking about what are some other ways that we can engage the community. So, your feedback in terms of, you know, where were you most engaged? What really worked? What are some things you think would be fruitful moving forward? We really would love all your feedback, and all across the board. Obviously, the positive things are nice, but we really would like also some critiques or some other creativity around what do you believe that the community really needs? What are maybe some things you've noticed missing, or ways that we can have some better engagement across Europe?
Exactly. Definitely ways to engage, event formats, communication formats, the good and the bad, everything, and the ugly. Just tell us everything that you think that we should do. We are in this together, and that's what a community is about, to be able to listen to each other and work together. So, do you want to add something else, or should we conclude this and move to the next point of the evening?
Let's move on to the music.
Let's move on to the music. Ju von Dölzschen, are you here? Can you listen to us? Okay. He's a one-man band, and hopefully he's also a one-man show when he can show up. He's a multi-instrumental live looping and unique in its style and way of making. Enjoy multiple genres, virtual soli, and incomparable handmade light music. And we can't wait to hear you. So I'll stop sharing my screen and wait for you to join us.
All right.
Hi.
Headphones on. Nice to see you all, guys, or don't see you. Ju von Dölzschen here, musician, one-man band from Dresden, Germany. I'm really glad to be here. This is actually the very first time that I'm doing a live streaming concert, which is pretty amazing. But unfortunately, the quality is not going to be as good as expected, because the program Zoom is not made for musicians and audio transfers, so it's not going to sound as good as in my headphones. But if you guys are curious about what kind of music I do, you can check it out on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, whatever. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it, even if the sound quality is not as good as expected. The song is kind of new. It's called Relax. It's from the Corona times, and yeah, I hope you guys are all doing good in these strange times. I'm getting better and better at the moment, because it's literally getting better here in my hometown, because street music is not forbidden anymore, and I just had my first concert last weekend, which is pretty amazing. Next concert this weekend, so I'm doing better and better. I hope you guys enjoy my song Relax. Grab the best headphones that you got, because it's not gonna sound perfect, but yeah, go check it out online.
Just wanted to let you know that I don't know how you're gonna share your music, but there's a feature on when you share to actually also share audio. I don't know if that's what you were gonna do, but anyway, you're aware of this, right?
there's something going on? Okay, I have no idea if you guys actually hear me because there's something else on the screen, but whatever, I'm gonna go on and play. Oh, I had the feeling that my last chance just passed away, and I had the feeling that for me there's no reason to stay. I was about to give it up, 'cause I thought that there's nothing I got, but in the end it was hate telling me it is never too late. I said it's never too late. All right, that was Relax. I hope you guys enjoyed it, even if the sound quality is not as good as expected, as I said. If you want to support me, guys, go and check out my channel on YouTube. Go and subscribe, hit the like button. Check out my Instagram, check out my Facebook if you want. You will find a lot of my music on Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes, etc., etc. And if you really want to support me, if you really liked it, then you can go to ju-music.de. There's a merch shop and you can find a bunch of nice stuff over there. CDs, bags, shirts. I will just show you one. Looks like that. It's organic cotton, so you do something good for Mother Nature. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Hope to see you soon. Ju von Dölzschen from Dresden, Germany. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you very much, Ju. That was great. Thanks very much for sharing with us this moment and showing us lovely beaches where we should be at as well. So we will definitely check you on YouTube. Matthew.
Yes, well, thanks again, everyone, for your participation and engagement. It's been particularly a big milestone for Elena and I as we join forces as co-directors, co-managing directors of Both And. So this is kind of like a celebration. We got a DJ, we have all of you coming together, an amazing roster of speakers and initiatives. So thank you, everyone, for your participation. It feels great to be launching into this together.
Thank you, and looking forward to the next steps.